Even when we know decluttering is important and necessary, it isn't always easy. Today, I want to share the things that I wish I knew before we started decluttering our home nearly 7 years ago, and after 3 years of working with clients, and how it's completely changed our lives. Hopefully this will help you avoid some of the mistakes I made along the way. Number one, practice makes perfect. Like anything new, decluttering is tricky and can be awkward and a little bit sticky at first. When I first started decluttering, honestly, I kind of sucked. I was slow. I didn't know where to start, what to do with all the stuff I decluttered, didn't know how to make decisions easily. And it was just honestly very overwhelming. However, with practice, things got so much easier. We even see this with clients all the time. On our first day there, the first few hours, they're unsure, they're not sure what to do. Things are kind of slow and a little bit awkward to start. And then by our third, fourth, fifth day with them, they are pros. Like they are making decisions left, right, and center. They know their drill and they feel comfortable with the process. So even if this early stage feels awkward and sticky, I really encourage you to keep going because it gets so much easier. Number two, we wasted so much money. I feel sort of nauseous thinking about all the money we wasted on items that we never or rarely ever used. I would say this started when my husband and I first got engaged, and then we got married, and then we had a child, and then we had another one. We were at that age where we sort of became like adults and felt like we had to like level up and buy what everyone else was buying and own what everyone else owned. And it was a big time of like consuming basically. But by decluttering, we could see, and we learned this lesson of like seeing all these things that we wasted so much money on and knowing that, we never want to do that again. Number three, decluttering is emotional. Whether we like it or not, a lot of emotions come out when we are decluttered. We aren't just, clearing out these physical spaces. A lot of times we're letting go of memories, we're letting go of, goals or dreams we may have had. There's a lot of guilt involved, and this can be exhausting. I think of myself as fairly ruthless when it comes to material possessions. However, I remember a time, this was a few years ago now, I was going through my keepsakes and I was like, I don't need all of these keepsakes. Let's go through them. And I was looking at letters. I had Kat that I had written home from summer camp when I was a kid, and I was so homesick. I was begging my parents to pick me up. I remember it was such a sad, lonely time. And I'm like, why am I keeping this? This is not a memory I ever want to relive. Like it was like an emotional, 5-10 minutes. But as soon as I let those go, I felt a weight lifted. Once I gave myself that grace to be like, okay, decluttering, it might be emotional at times, it allowed me to move forward a little more easily and things became more seamless. Number four, the guilt disappears. I used to keep so many items out of guilt. Guilt over money we've spent, guilt over something that maybe a family member or a friend gifted us, guilt over items that I feel like I should be using, like that green tea I always used to buy because I felt like I should be drinking it, but I actually hated it. Always ended up throwing it out. But here's the thing, as soon as I got rid of these items, the guilt disappeared. Almost instantly. Letting go of unused items is such a relief. The guilt was not serving me. It was just leaving me stuck with a bunch of unnecessary things. And once I let go of that, my house felt lighter and I also felt so much lighter. Number five, a donation station is a game changer. I cannot believe I went so long without one. When we first started our decluttering journey, I would have little bags or tiny boxes or random piles all in my laundry room, all over the floor of these are items we're eventually gonna get rid of. And it drove me sort of crazy. Eventually we decided, let's have a permanent spot in our home for donations before they leave our house. So we have a little area above a closet in our basement and it is designated for donations. So if I do a 5-minute declutter, or I'm like, oh, I don't need this for the kids anymore, it's a random toy I know they don't play with, I just throw it in there. And as soon as that area is full, I just take it in my car and drop it off for donations. It is such a simple trick, but it makes the whole process so much easier and it makes it part of a daily routine. It can just be little bit by little bit, just as you move through life. Number 6, our stuff really isn't that valuable. And embarrassingly, this one took me a while to like fully accept and fully sink in. In the early days of decluttering, I would spend so much time like cleaning old items and then setting them up to take photos and take videos. I would do long descriptions to post them online to sell them, and then there would be crickets. And I'd be like, how does everyone not want this baby wipe warmer that I used for the last 3 years? Like, I love this thing. Why doesn't everyone else like this? Like, nobody cares. Like, I would get like someone be like, I'll give you $5 for it. Like, we see this a lot with clients who have grown children. So say we're helping a client declutter. They're retired, empty nesters, they're decluttering their home, and they're like, oh, look at this old piece of furniture or this box of CDs. Maybe my kids want it. So they'll be taking pictures and sending it to their kids and saying, hey, does anybody want this? And like 99.9% of the time, they're gonna write back and say, Mom, no, I don't want that pie plate from 1975. Like, I do not want that. It's so hard to wrap our minds around because a lot of things were at one point very important or very functional for us, but we just no longer need them. And we have to remember that chances are someone else might use them, but they might not be as valuable in their eyes than they were to us at one point. Full transparency, I do still sell stuff online, but just not quite as much, and I've definitely tweaked my expectations. Number 7, we had so much useless furniture. When we first moved into this house, it was like this was kind of like a big grown-up house for us. And I remember when we moved in, I'm just thinking, okay, like I have to furnish every area. I'm on Pinterest. I'm like looking what's cool, what kind of chair should we have? And I just filled this place. And then like a few years went by and I'm like, wow, like I've never sat in those chairs. No one ever sits there. Like I have to move that chair constantly to vacuum around it, but no one actually uses it as a chair. The beauty of these items that once I started to get rid of them, whole areas, like whole parts of rooms would just like feel so much lighter, and it was so much easier to move around, so much easier to maintain our home. It had a huge impact on our entire house. Number 8 is that decluttering makes parenting easier. Now, when we first started, it was in the early days of parenting, where if anyone else remembers, there's a lot of stuff associated with babies, toddlers, starting school, all of that. So I totally get it. But once we started to simplify, I could feel myself feel lighter. Like I was just overwhelmed in those first couple of years with how much stuff came into our home. But as I did it room by room, closet by closet, my like whole heart felt lighter and I felt more peaceful. I don't think there's anything more important than having a calm and peaceful mother when it comes to making parenting easier. Number 9, we definitely needed boundaries. In those early stages of simplifying our home, making the decisions was kind of slow and awkward and tricky because we didn't know how much to keep of things. Like I'm like, how many onesies does this baby need? How many mugs should we have in our kitchen? How many bathing suits should I own? And those were things that like I had never really considered before, but with practice, like I mentioned before, I started to figure out, you know what, like this is a perfect amount for us to be like optimize our home and to be like the most functional and the most peaceful and the most organized. And as I started to learn like numbers or physical boundaries, whether it was a drawer or a shelf or a bin or a basket. So once we started to have these boundaries, the whole process of decluttering became so much more effortless and so much more seamless. Number 10, fancy organizing products and hacks do not matter. Early on, I spent so much time and energy thinking, you know, should we use this turntable or this turntable? Is this how everyone else is doing it? Oh, like, man, I see this hack on TikTok. Like, should I be doing it this way? Because I've always been doing it this way. And I spent so much time and energy on that. And honestly, most of that time I feel like was completely wasted. And truly, it was just a distraction from the actual act of decluttering and simplifying, which in my mind is what truly like moves that needle forward and truly gets you closer to a super peaceful and simple home. Number 11, there were 3 categories over and over again that we continually declutter, and it is the same even today. That is gifts, freebies, and emotional or impulse purchases. Number one, gifts. I have found, and this is a huge issue with clients as well, the amount of items that we keep out of guilt because they were gifted to us. This is so common, but let me remind you that as soon as you let go of something that is unused and unnecessary, the guilt pretty much disappears instantly. And this lesson has taught me to be so careful and mindful and intentional about what we're gifting other friends and family members. Freebies are my nightmare. I actually feel like borderline freebies should be illegal. Like all the little tiny bits that you get at family events or like free community events. It's just constant, overwhelming, and never ending. I have learned to become very careful about what we allow in, and just knowing that honestly 90% of this, as soon as items come into our home, if I know that probably no one's going to end up using them, it's a very quick turnaround to get them out. I don't like let them linger and let them fester and let them like weigh on me for a long period of time. Number 12, we wasted so much time managing our stuff. This one potentially makes me even more nauseous than how much money we wasted on stuff. Looking back at like the weekends we wasted, reorganizing our basement storage or going through the garage again and continually like moving or cleaning or fixing, tidying, repairing items that no one truly used, like makes me sort of bananas. Decluttering might seem like sort of a time-consuming chore to start, but once we created a simpler, easy to manage home and life, our schedule naturally followed. Number 13, so much of it is just trash. This was a huge lesson, especially when we started working with clients who have been in their homes for say 25, 30, 35 years. A lot of times when people think about decluttering, they think about items that, get donated, passed to family members or friends, items that they sell, but we don't really talk a lot about kind of what gets tossed. So garbage, recycling, shredding, hazardous waste, to me, all of those categories should also be encompassed and included in your decluttering journey. Like say you're doing a decluttering challenge, I 100% count garbage. This can be a big sticking point for a lot of people who are like really environmentally conscientious, which I totally get. I also never want items to just end up in the landfill. That's like never obviously my goal. However, I truly believe that if you go through the process of getting rid of these items now, it's such an important lesson and that will change your habits moving forward and think, hey, should I buy this? Or is this something that's probably just gonna be used for, 6 months, 12 months and then get thrown out? Number 14 is that I didn't have to do it alone. When I first started this journey, I was on maternity leave, and for a lot of you, you might have also had the same experience on maternity leave. I was extremely lonely, it was isolating, and to me, this was a project I sort of took on my own, and I really took it to heart in that it was my venture, my journey, it was my thing, which at times was fun and exciting, but other times it was exhausting and overwhelming and extremely frustrating. Eventually, I kind of let in my husband, I let Scott in, and I'm like, I need help with this, or I need you to kind of be on board with this. I need your help with this. What do you think about this? And having a second set of eyes and a second set of hands is invaluable. And it took off so much pressure off of me and felt so good. And now that our kids are getting older, even they participate as well. And I feel like these are skills that I am giving the kids that they will now have, forever. Number 15, declutter is never ending, but not in a bad way. It has become a part of life. It's seamless, incorporated into our lives. Getting rid of items in our home that are not being used is, to me, almost more important than the items we are adding and consuming and bringing into our home. Decluttering is not always easy, but it is one of the most rewarding things that you can do for your space and your home and your mind. But the most important lesson of all is to just start. Start small, start anywhere, just start and keep going. Don't get discouraged. It's gonna feel awkward. It might be hard at first, but I promise if you keep going, things get so much easier. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope this helps you on your decluttering journey. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe and share with your friends, and leave a comment below about your decluttering experience. What is one thing you wish you had known before you started decluttering?